Everyone, Russ Hamilton here, and welcome to another edition of Correctional Law Enforcement. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Johnny Ray, author of the book Yard Down, and he's going to regale us with some of his experiences from inside the correctional system and talk a little bit about gangs. We're just going to chop it up, have a little bit of an outline planned, but for the most part, I think we're just going to freewheel it. Let me remove that and bring Johnny on. Good evening, Johnny. How are you doing?
Good evening, Russ. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Glad to have you on. So anyway, I just thought we'd kind of start with the 30,000 foot overview on what exactly got you into corrections. How did you start your illustrious career?
Wow. So I used to work at a grocery store, and I think I was about 18, 19, around that age. And one of my coworkers, he got hired to start the prison at the academy. And he told me about it, and I was like, nah, I don't want to work in no prison. But he kept on staying on me. He was like, man, this is the next level job in this area. You want a job like this for benefits, retirement. And, when you're that young, no one's thinking about retirement at that age. But he was saying the wages are great. You're going to be working 8-hour shifts, and you'll have 2 days off. And so he ended up just telling me, come on, I'm going to go help you put your application in. So I turned it in. And during that time, around 1994, 95, there was a big freeze. And I think I was about 20 years old at this time. And there was a freeze within the department on hiring. So I just forgot about it. And next thing you know, I get a letter in the mail. And it said, Department of Corrections, do you want to join? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I responded to the letter, and next thing you know, I was in the academy.
Right on. My experience was kind of similar. I was doing construction work, and I was kind of starting to get maybe a little bit more farsighted. I was 25 and decided I needed something with a pension. And at first I didn't like it much, but eventually, just got to the point where I ended up loving the job. And so
Same here.
it's one of those things that it kind of grows on you. And, for me, it was a way to, provide for my family and everything else. But most of all, I came to like it and then love it. And I think that, there's a lot of cautionary tales out there about getting involved in this kind of thing and a lot of negativity. And, there are negatives, and those are things, though, that I think that, if you have your eyes wide open, you can, make your way through this and come out, I won't say unscathed, but relatively intact at the end of it. What was your experience with that? How do you think the job eventually affected you, if at all?
Oh, it definitely did. As I still to this day have dreams and nightmares about work all the time. I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning and can't go back to sleep because I think I'm still working. I'm in uniform. I'm responding. I'm dealing with the situation. I'm working a housing unit. So in the long, I still deal with that all the time. But I had a great, no regrets on working for the Department of Corrections. I started at 22 years old. I opened up Salinas Valley. That was my only choice. Normally they give you, I think, 2 or 3 choices on where you want to go work, but Salinas Valley was my only option because it was a new prison, and I think half the academy was getting shot over there. So a lot of us were from the valley, and next thing you know, we're moving to Monterey County, which was great for me because I got the chance to grow up. I move out of my parents' house. I become independent. I start making my own money, uh, becoming an adult, not leeching on my parents. You know what I mean? So, and it taught me. I want you to imagine working at a facility where everybody's like 30 years old and under. That's what it seemed like. There was a lot of young inmates there, but man, the staff, it was like, it seemed like it was like 60, 70% 30 years or younger. I mean, we were all fish cops or someone who had experience had maybe 2 years. Maybe there was a couple guys who had 5 years. They came from Soledad over, or they came from down south, and they came up and with a lot of seniority. But for the most part, it was just a bunch of young bucks.
And what was it like those first few days? I remember, like for me, it was. I mean, it was just a complete culture shock. I had never seen anything like this. And it was just, completely just steeped in all of this, craziness. And I mean, just the stories alone, that all these older guys were telling me, because we had a lot of older staff at San Quentin. What was that like? What was it? What was was there a shock factor for you, or did you
Oh
just,
yeah,
immediately, take to it?
yeah. Immediately, as a rookie or fish cop, you get thrown to the wolves. They put you in the building in the housing unit, which is great because that's how you learn. So I remember working. I was a floor officer when I was back in the '90s. I'm sure you remember the whole pie system. So I was a pie for like a year, and so you're kind of like not full time. So they bounce you around on a daily basis from here. You're on A yard one day, B yard next day, C yard next day, D yard, and just bouncing around. They can just do whatever they want with you, and you can't say no, else they won't call you. They'll basically just say, you know what, you don't want to work, we'll call the next person. So I was never like that. I was like, yeah, I'll work any job. So I remember working I was a floor officer on third watch, and I remember running day room for the very first time. And I was with a more seasoned officer, thank goodness, because the last thing you want is to be your first day and your partner's an overtime, or it's his first day, or he's new, and then the inmates are just running amok and just running game on us. But my partner, he was a regular 5 days a week, and I just remember during day room, I think we busted it out like at 6 p.m. and we go to the podium in the middle of the day room, and he just yells to the control booth, "Hey, let's start day room, start popping open second tier." And I just remember all the and all these doors clicking. And next thing you know, it went from quiet to mayhem. All these guys on the second tier are running out of their cells, running to the shower, running to get to the phone, trying to get to the TV, trying to iron their pants, uh, to the sink to try to wash their clothes in the buckets. So it was just crazy. And then we had like a line of people coming up to us. Hey, can I get some parcels of toilet paper? Hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And being brand new, you're like, man, what do I say? No, because they teach you always say no to everything, but that's not the case. But so I just watched my partner do his thing, and he was just like a magician out there, and he just was working these dudes like a puppet. And that's what an experienced floor cop does. He can run a housing unit by himself without his partner if he's that good, if he knows his building. Him and his control booth, they see eye to eye. They know what each other's movement is. It's almost like a quarterback and a wide receiver, that they know exactly how each other works. So I just watch and see how he dealt with situations, questions. He would just tell guys, "Hey, come back. I'm dealing with this. Give me 10 minutes. Hey, I'll put you on a phone call. Once we lock everybody up, I'll throw you on a phone call for 5 minutes." And things that you would think there's like unheard of stuff, like you just think like, man, can he do this? But you're the floor officer. That is your post. You can do anything you want to do as long as it's legal. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of my first experiences. And then from there, I always wanted to work the floor because I seen how this officer operated handling all these inmates and gangsters. And I was like, oh, that's me. I'm going to learn how to do that. And I'm going to be this guy who's teaching me. And that's what I want to be. And that's what I end up becoming later as I learned at Salinas Valley. And I end up becoming full time after a year. And someone offered me a position, a full time position, a 5 day week. And the guy goes, hey, I got a floor officer job on A1 Sunday, Mondays off. Do you want it? I was like, of course I want it, man. I was single. I had no kids. I mean, third watch. That's what we want. And a piece of the weekend. And I had great partners. I had a chance to work with like my buddy Vincent Garcia, Pat Eaton, and it was great. And then I met a bunch of guys on the yard that ended up teaching me, helping me, and we all learned together.
Yeah, I think that that's the story for a lot of us that come through. I don't think I'd thought about the term PIE, which is permanent intermittent employee, in years now. But that's the way I started out too. And it was an amazing thing, and kind of a trial by fire, because you were just put in so many different situations. And like I could be put down in the ranch at San Quentin, which has no perimeter at all, in the day. And then on an overtime or the next day, suddenly, I'm on death row. And so the differences between the two, and having to learn to, shift gears between those two things, I think it makes you, that much more sharper and useful and experienced over time. And then after a while, it was like I started getting, kind of all of the same jobs. As the word got around that I would actually get in there and work. And so I might like be an H unit or death row or West Block. And those were kind of my go-to places after a while. And you
Yeah, you're
try
right,
and,
Russ. Because what happens is these senior cops, they know they got a vacant spot and they're gonna be plugging in someone brand new every day. So if you have a good work ethic, a lot of these senior cops, they request you, hey, he was in my building yesterday. Hey, can you put him in here tomorrow? And the next day it's gonna be open. Earn your reputation as a new officer is by doing good quality work and showing up on time, not being weak, being solid, and earning your keep inside the walls. And then next thing you know, older officers start requesting you, asking for you. Hey, I want that guy to work in here. Can you put him in this spot? It's open for 3 months. Can you plug him in? And that's how you start earning your reputation and getting a little respect as a new guy.
absolutely. But but it is kind of daunting, because at the beginning, you never know. You're just like, like that pinball, and you're just getting, shot here and shot there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you end up, maybe you've been there a few weeks, and all of a sudden, you're going to a brand new post that you've never even heard of. And that could be, at times, to me, it was kind of like terrifying. Like, what? I'm just learning this. And then all of a sudden I'm having to learn, a whole new set of inmates. I'm having to learn a whole new set of procedures. Especially, up on like at San Quentin, we had all of these gun rails and stuff. And then, you start getting put up on those. And that to me, that was probably the most, intense and intimidating thing at all, to work up there, and have things happening below you and just craziness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember. And on the flip side of that coin, if you're one of those officers who doesn't produce and doesn't do a good job, next thing you know, you're on that list, kind of like the bad news list. They go tell the sergeant, hey, don't bring that guy in this yard. I don't want him working in my building. He don't do nothing. He's a truck. He's lazy. He don't want to learn, or he thinks he knows it all. And then next thing you know, you're wondering, man, how come they're not calling me on that yard or in that post anymore? It's pretty much your work ethic. I mean, word gets around real quick. I mean, if you got a good work ethic, you're going to get snatched up real quick by a supervisor to work for them.
Hey, so tell everybody what a real bad news list is.
Oh man, in the gang world.
In the gang world, yes.
Okay, so the bad news list is basically like a hit list. It's a target list that the gangs create um, of guys who dropped out. So since I'm like a Norteño guy, we'll talk about Norteños. So Norteños, they call it the B&L list. It's a target list. So if me and Russ were in the same building as San Quentin, and next thing you know, I wake up in the morning to go to chow, and Russ is my neighbor, and he's a Norteño, and he's gone. We're like, where's Russ at? He disappeared in the middle of the night during first watch when we were all asleep. And what are we gonna do as gangsters? We're gonna ask the CEO, hey, where's Russ at, the neighbor? And hopefully the CEO will say, I don't know. That's the number one answer you could tell a gangster. I don't know. Because if you tell them something, and like for example, if the you tell the gangster, oh, he went PC, he rolled it up, he's snitching on everybody. These gangsters, whatever you say, they're like a recorder. They take that information that you just provided to them, they'll write it down. Hey, Officer Ray, he told me dude rolled it up and he's snitching on everybody. We need to start hiding all our stuff. And let's just say that that kite or this information falls into the lieutenant's hands, or even worse, ISU's hands or internal affairs hands. That now they're thinking, oh man, this Officer Ray, is he helping these dudes out? Is he giving them information? So I like to tell people, if these guys are asking you information on what's going on with somebody, just say, hey, it's none of your business, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to get involved. That's none of your business. That's the safest answer to tell these guys, because they will write your name down. Officer Ray told me this on this date, this time. I asked him, and this is what he told me verbatim. So back to B&L's list. So Russ disappears, and now we find out he's dropped out. He's hiding. He went to the hole. So we're gonna add his name to the bad news list, the B&L. Russ Hamilton. We're gonna add his date of birth, his CDC number, what city, what barrio he's from, and maybe what his charges are. And we're going to circulate that, and we're going to circulate it within our area or prison, say San Quentin, and then say our neighbor, another Norteño, say, hey, I'm transferring, I'm going to DVI, I'm going to High Desert, Bay, or Corcoran. We're going to give him a note, a kite, with Russ Hamilton's name on there, with all that information. Say, hey, this dude rolled it up, and he's snitching now, and just let you know he's on the B&L's list. So when this kite gets to these other institutions, it just gets passed along, but to everybody within the game. So now everybody's aware that Russ Hamilton went MIA in the middle of the night and is now snitching. So if an active Norteño were to run into Russ Hamilton, they would know he's not in good standings. And so if they had a chance to assault him, they will take off on him and assault him and try to harm him and maybe even do worse. But I think all, for the most part, have a bad news list. It's not really called B&L. Norteños use B&L, but Sureños, white boys, blacks, they have like a no good list, a target list that they write. They keep track of it. It's not as structured as Norteños, but word gets long if it gets around if they're not in good standings with the game.
Yeah, and absolutely, all of that gets shot out to everywhere, so that their level of control isn't just over 1 yard or one prison. I mean, it's a many tentacled beast, if you will. And so, the development of all of these, different little bits of information is something that they use to, really maintain that control. And it's an amazing thing, really, because those kites just go everywhere. And, that's
everywhere,
one
and they're
thing.
all duplicated. They're all Xeroxed. So they make they make this list with Russ Hamilton's name on, and they say like they make 5 copies, and so each copy goes with 5 guys, and it gets spread out through the state. It's crazy the way they do it.
That's funny. I that makes me recall a couple of things. I once told a guy that he was going to be validated because he had carpal tunnel syndrome, and
Mhm.
and so
Yeah,
he actually believed me. I think for about a minute because we knew that he was the one. He was scribing all the little kites and stuff. And he was being seen in medical for something to do with his wrist. And so I just, I fed him a line of bullshit, but he thought it was real for a minute. But there's guys out there and they just, they do that microscopic, writing. And once again, it somehow ends up everywhere.
yeah. So if there's any correction officers listening, I'm sure there is going to be. So these are things when you do a cell search to look for this kites, long strips of paper. Look for cellophane wrapped around something because they use the cellophane to wrap up the kites. Look for latex gloves with the fingers missing, and so the fingertip area, that's what they use to put the bundle of kites in. They'll wrap the kite up in cellophane and then stick the cellophane kites inside the glove, and it'll act like a balloon, and then it'll tie it. And then this way, if they want to put it in their mouth, they want to put it in their rectum, whichever. So those are just a few things you want to look for if you're a housing unit officer, you're searching a cell. Um, Fine point pins. That's another thing that they order. They're not using the medium. They want the fine point pin because they want to write as small as they can on paper. So this way, older guys like us in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they can't read it and they think we're going to get like frustrated and just throw them away. So those are just little tips.
Yeah, I always remember is, sometimes guys would be coming in hot with, 5, 10, maybe 15 even different kites. And once in a while, we'd be able to, intercept those through various methods and whatnot. So tell me, going back to kind of the beginning of your career here, where you started to get interested in the gangs and what you learned and how you learned it and how you applied that to being for me, it was a better officer. Once I knew the gang game, I had an insight as to what they were doing and how they were conducting it. And things like the kites to me, learning, how they moved them around, the things they did was invaluable to doing other things within the units I would be in.
Yeah. So early in my career, when I worked at Salinas Valley, I was always in a housing unit. I like I said, I worked A1 around 96, 97, 98 as a floor officer. So I got a chance to see, and it was back then, it was all general population. There was no PC yard, no 50-50 yard. Everybody at that time. So, but at that time, all the shot callers were already in Corcoran Shoe, Pelican Bay Shoe, and Tehachapi Shoe. So I had a chance to deal with a lot of the soldiers. Nazi Lowrider was up and coming. You had some Northern Structure guys out there on the main lines, and then just regular Woods, skinheads, and then you have your black gangs that Kumi and Bloods and Crips. So I started learning how to talk to them during day room. So I would always walk around my get down as a floor officer. Once I started learning how to run a block, and I felt comfortable in myself, how to talk, how to carry myself, I used to just during day room and third watch, we used to pop them out. And then once they get situated in their card tables or their domino tables, I would just walk around and just stand behind them. And they used to just turn around and like, hey, what's up, young Ray? Because that's what they called me, young Ray, because I was young. And they would just, what you? I said, man, I'm just watching. I'm trying to see who has a good game on this table in this building. Who's cleaning house here? Oh, it's all good. So that's what I said. So they didn't mind me being a fly in the wall. So they didn't know I was taking a lot of mental notes. So when these guys are playing and gambling, they're not calling each other by their real name. They're calling each other by their AKAs. So what I would do is I would just walk around and just laugh and joke around and hear their AKAs, and then I would end up gravitating back to my the officer station, and I had a roster there, and I used to write down their AKAs next to their picture on my own personal roster. I printed one out, and I would write down everybody's AKA. And then once I started getting all that, then I started saying, you know what? Let me get their vadio and their gang name and their streets and what city they're from. And so it was like a challenge. I challenged myself, and I started doing that. So I learned that, and I started learning about gangs, how they operate, how they segregate themselves in the day room, blacks, Asians, norteños on this side, white boys, sureños on this side. Um, Certain showers are only used by a certain group. There was one community shower that was kind of neutral for anybody. How the norteños, when they go inside the shower, they have to secure the door. That's mandatory. That's a security protocol implemented by the NF. That's for in case they're showering and someone comes in and just tries to blast them while they're showering because they're in a vulnerable position. So that's why gangs like Norteños secure the door. A lot of times nowadays, the officer, when they walk by, they'll go around and secure the door anyways, just to be safe on the safe side. And some officers, control booth officers, will tell them, "Hey, lock the door." "Oh no, I'm just being in and out." No, lock the door. That's the safest thing for a correction officer. When you guys are showering in your day room, when they go in the shower, have them secure themselves in there, because the last thing you want is you to get distracted and they go in there and they start stabbing dude. And then next, you know, they're washing their body, getting rid of all the evidence, and they walk away and they go in their cell with no traces. So just keep that in mind. So that's how I kind of learned. And then once I was kind of like, I say blessed to leave Salinas Valley, because nobody was allowed to transfer at Salinas Valley because it was just so, it was like the wild, wild west there. And they needed officers, so they wouldn't let no one transfer out. So finally, after 3 years, I got blessed into transferring. I ended up transferring to Corcoran State Prison. And you go from the frying pan to the ultimate fire, it was crazy at Corcoran. I go into Corcoran, and next you know, the Fresno Bees there. They're investigating all this stuff going on in the shoe. It was my first day in orientation. There's like helicopters flying around. Fresno Bees posted up in front doing interviews. I was like, damn, what I get myself into? So I get to Corcoran. I run into a couple guys that I know from Salinas Valley, and they kind of like welcome me, and they tell me, give me kind of like a rundown where to work. Working on 3A yard, which was a GP yard where they had Sudan and Bulldogs, and then all the black gangs there. They at that time there were green light with Sureños and Norteños, so they would keep them separated. The Norteños were on 3B yard, and the Sureños were on 3A yard. So I ended up working building one. I had a good partner named Pierce. I had one of the best supervisors at Corcoran, Bruce Cook, and a bunch of experienced staff. So I went from a prison with guys under 30 to a prison guys in their late 30s, 40s, which was great. So it was like night and day. So I get there, I'm all kind of gun ho, and they're like, "Hey, relax, youngster. This is Corcoran." And they just, I don't want to go into detail, but they were like, "This is Corcoran." All that Wild Wild West stuff, that ain't happening over here. We have our incidents, but it's not like over there. I mean, Corcoran was already established. I mean, They had the shoe right there, all the mafia, the NF, AB, BGF on the shoe side, and then you had your mainline side. So I started working there. I was there for about 3 years, and I did the same exact thing during the day room as a third watch officer. I had a roster, and but this time, once I had the roster filled out, I told myself, you know what? I'm going to pass this information on to IGI at Corcoran. So I called him. I said, hey, I created this roster with everybody's AKA and what set they are for myself. Would you guys want to copy or take a look at it? And they said, yeah, let me check it out. And I don't think I ever got it back, but they were like, damn, this is some good stuff. Can you imagine if everybody did this on the building? But I just did it to challenge myself. You know what I mean? And that, when I got to Corcoran, that's when I kind of like started saying, man, I could see myself maybe later being into a gang investigator. I worked in IGI, but I wasn't ready yet because I was still learning. At this point, I had like about 5, 6 years in the department. I was still learning how to be a correction officer, a floor officer, how to respond, how to deal with situations. So I ended up transferring again to DVI in 2003. So I get to DVI and I get thrown a third watch. And then I meet somebody I know. I start seeing a lot of people I know from Salinas Valley. They're like, hey, brother, I remember you from Salinas, this and this and that. And I was like, yeah, who else is here? And they're like, oh, we got homeboys over here. We got homeboys over here. And I was like, oh, all right, cool, man. And then I end up getting plugged in working AdSeg. Um, I don't know what it was. A good solid lieutenant named Bosio and Gilbert Valenzuela, they snatched me up and they said, hey, you're going to work AdSeg for us. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, whatever you need me to do, I'm a rookie. I don't got no time. Put me wherever. And they put me in like an overflow AdSeg. And then I end up going to another AdSeg unit. And it was great. And then I end up about 11 years in. And then that's when I kind of like went to investigations.
Okay, so that's the point at which you decided, hey, I have something to offer. And so tell me about that transition. You're already set up here, kind
Mhm.
of for, hey, the least little bit of information is good, right? Keeping book on these people is what breaks cases and makes your job easier down the road. And so all of those things together is the only way you can be hitting on all cylinders when you're doing that kind of work. So take me through that process and what it was like, getting involved into the guts of not just the violence, but all of the other criminal activity that takes place.
So are you asking me well, when I got to ISU, what I started doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of my buddies, they ended up going to ISU. And I was working in I think AdSeg, and they were like, man, Johnny, you would love this gig. This is you would all the passion you have working in the buildings, you would love investigating gangsters chasing after drugs and just busting people. And I was like, oh man, let me think about it. Don't think about it. I'm telling you firsthand. So I ended up applying. It took me like 3 tries, and I got picked up, and I was up there. And once you get into ISU, it takes about a good year to figure out what the heck you're doing. You don't just go up there and you know how to interview, how to question people, how to search the right way, how to write, how to document, how to do confidentials, how to photograph. So you got to learn all this. So I started going to trainings throughout the state, and I started educating myself. And then anytime an incident happened on our yard, whether if it's on the reception side or on the mainline side, I would run out there because that's how you learn. You can learn a lot by reading the book or going to a training seminar, but the best way to learn is responding and doing something firsthand. And that's what I do. I used to do a lot. So once I got the education from reading books, going to these trainings, now I was responding and learning, putting all that stuff to work and figuring out my whole little system. And I created a good system for any time there was a removal on the yard. And I would just start teaching. People would just, the escorting officer, if someone were to get stabbed or hit, I used to tell the escorting officer, hey, bro, bring your guy in. If you want, you can stay and watch and learn, or you can shake. You can shake, and I'm going to be in here 15 minutes with this guy. And it was up to them. I was never, hey, you need to shake this confident. No, I want you to learn. I want you to see how I would do my get down. And if you like it, you can use it. You make it your own. So that's what I was trying to teach. And I was just an officer, and that was my goal, was just to help these guys, how to talk to them, how to get a self admit, find out what the problem was. So those are little tactics that I learned, and I ended up putting all this in my book so people could understand what I was talking about. And so just responding to incident over and over, learning how to write, get involved. Don't just run to an incident and just be in the cuts and just watch. No, go get your hands dirty, especially if you're ISU, your IGI, whatever you are. You need to be get out there getting your hands dirty, because who's watching? The gangsters are watching, and the staff are watching. Because if I run out there and I don't do nothing, I don't bust a grape, my coworkers, the other people on the line, they're like, look at Johnny. He's wearing that uniform and he ain't even busting a grape. He's out here doing what we're doing. So I was never like that. I was out there getting my hands dirty, trying to figure out what happened, why the guy got stabbed, why the guy got beat down. Was it over drugs? They got bad paperwork. So that's what I try to teach as well, to help people.
Right. Hey, let's talk about that one word you mentioned, which means something specific to you and I, a removal. Tell us what that means specifically, because it has a very specific meaning within the circles you and I have traveled.
Yeah, so in prison, this is a removal is prison jargon, basically. It's a slang word that the gangsters use, and officers like myself and Russ, we've been around it, hearing it so long, we kind of incorporated it in our terminology now. So a removal is just a violent assault on a target. So for Norteños and the NF says we need to kill that guy, and you go do your thing. We're gonna go remove him. We're gonna remove him from the line. He's on the main line, and our mission is to take him out, kill him, put him down hard, do whatever we can do to make a statement on the yard, a removal. And a lot of these guys, that's how they elevate their status. So if I were to do a removal and I kill somebody, now the NF, they're looking at me, man, that dude Johnny Ray, he's a hitter. He's down. He sacrificed his parole day, his freedom to kill somebody. Now he's going to get charged. Now they think I'm all in it in the organization. I want to be all I can be. And so now they're willing to recruit me to the next level, to the elite circle. So that's what a lot of the gangsters who do these removals, it's like a stepping stone to get a promotion. So that's why they do it. Some of them, they owe cleanup. If Russ had a phone at San Quentin and he didn't hide it the proper way, and a correction officer searched his cell and found it, and of course, the correction officer when they document, they're going to say exactly where they found it. I found it underneath this pillow. It was had a charger connected to it. So what happens? Russ is going to say, "Man, I lost the phone." What? That's $1,000 phone. Where'd you lose it? I had it under my pillow. Now that's a big no-no. That can get you killed in some prisons for losing a good phone. So Russ, he might be like frontline status. He owes a cleanup. He owes the gang maybe some money, or the next time someone needs to get stabbed, Russ has to do it because he lost a hot phone. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the amount of pressure that's put on people to do things. They're just hey, take this and go stab that guy. And the kind of unwritten and unsaid rule is there's no such thing as a refusal. There's no doing that. Then there's this other section of guys that are always the ones that want to raise their hands and do it because they see it as an opportunity, like you said, to move forward and to move up in the
Yeah.
organization. And so it's not a negative for them. Talk a little bit about how these guys get involved in the gangs versus the ones who, really truly are, for lack of a better term, the shining stars that really want to rise to the top.
Okay, so a lot of these, I've interviewed like thousands of gangsters over the years, and a lot of them have the same exact story. They come from low income housing, um, from the projects, the hood, the barrio. A lot of these guys, they have no father figure. There's no alpha male in the house disciplining them, hitting them, telling them no. So a lot of these guys, they rely on the streets. They start. It's like a stray dog. They go out to the streets and they see Johnny Badass out there on the corner with all this gold, nice clothes, maybe a car, and he's a gang member. He's selling drugs for the gang, and they know this guy, this young kid, has nothing, and they target those guys. They recruit them, and they tell them, "Hey man, come over here, youngster. You want to wear some clothes like this? You want some money?" And they show them a fat roll of cash. You can make some cash like this, and they use them. They influence them, they brainwash them, and then they recruit them. And then next thing you know, these dudes are committing a felony for the gang on the street. Next thing you know, they're in the backseat of a police car. Next thing you know, they're getting broken off 10 years, 20 years in prison. And then next thing you know, they're in prison. Now they're at the prison life where they're dealing with hardcore prisoners who've been in prison all their life, and now they got to go through the pressures of that. So that's how a lot of the young ones. And then you have the guys like, say, let's go with the city of Salinas. Those guys talk about the 14 bonds over dinner. That's how deep it is in Salinas, the city. That's like the headquarters for to be a norteño. Salinas. You got Visalia. You got Merced. You got Stockton. You got Sacramento, San Jose. But Salinas is different. I mean, the mentality of those gangsters, once they come to prison, you know the difference between a Salinas guy and a Stockton guy, or a Salinas guy and a Sacramento guy. Not to say anything bad about Sacramento and Stockton, but these guys have been bred in these 14 bonds and taught about the NF all through their life. Their dad, their mom, their uncles, their families, they're all tied up into the gang life on the streets and all been busted, have been in and out of jail. So they've been around that environment their whole life. So a lot of those guys, once they get to prison, we kind of call those guys who strive. They're striving. to move up the ladder quick. And a lot of those guys are the ones that raise their hands. Hey, we need this guy whacked. I'll do it because he wants to put his name out there, his reputation, and he wants to gain status and respect in prison.
Yeah, I think it's it's just pure propaganda, and you're right. They're sensitized to it. They're manipulated by it, and just everything you hear. That whole thing about striving. Push, pull, strive, keep the cause alive, and all of these things mean specific things to them. Can you talk a little bit about cause? CAUSE.
Oh man, so they break that down, La Casa, and it's part of their history and their whole struggle. And each letter means something. I mean, offhand, I can't remember. Maybe like C would stand for like carnalismo, like a brotherhood. A would be awareness. U is unity. S is security, and E would be equality. I think that's what it is, what it spells out to when they break it down. And then each letter, they have a definition for it, and they break it down what it means. And this is some of the stuff that young Norteños are required to know, especially if you're striving. If you want to go into the elite circle of Norteños and become a Norteño Soldado or Northern Structure, uh, that is stuff you need to know verbatim and memorized.
Yeah, and this is the same kind of across the spectrum. They all each have their own little different terms, terminologies, and education about this, and it's part of becoming and getting into that lifestyle. Can you talk a little bit about what IGI means and how that's incorporated into what we do within the prison system to try and tamp down on the gangs, because the gangs are our biggest impediment towards further success, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, so IGI, that's like the initials for Institutional Gang Investigator. It's basically like the gang unit. That's what the gangsters in the buildings, that's what they call us. That's what I was. That's what they would call our unit. IGI. IGI is here where they write it on kites. IGI, don't, you're not allowed to participate in the interview. If they pull you over, you say, I don't have nothing to say. If they ask you a question, just say no comment. So IGI is a group of, maybe, depending on what prison you're at, it could be a group of 3 officers, or depending on if it's like a shoe, you could have 5 to 10, depending on what prison you work at and how bad the gang violence is. So your duties and responsibilities are basically monitor gang activity, validate them, uh, debrief them when they drop out, try to put cases on them, getting informants. Believe it or not, there's a lot of gang members out there that end up turning informants, and they're on the download. They're still in good standings, but they work with the IGI officer. So that's some of the duties we do. But gangs, IGI and ISU are kind of like the guys who chase like the security within the facility and narcotics. But gangs and narcotics, they work hand in hand because gangsters are the ones that sell the narcotics in prison. So when you're monitoring gang activity, narcotics is normally involved because that's how the gang makes revenue for the organization. So you end up becoming a gang expert and a lot of times a narcotic expert because you're dealing with both ends.
Right. So now you've reached the pinnacle, the peak, and getting into the IGI slot. Tell us about how you came to that, and about some of the things that you've testified about. I read in your book that you were what's you were confirmed as an expert on certain parts of the gang. In court, when you're giving expert testimony, you have to be certified as being that. And sometimes they'll challenge you on that, the defense will. So were there any times where you were like especially, what's the term I'm looking for, challenged with regards to being an expert or anything like that?
Well, it goes with the territory. If you're a good skater, you should be going to court a lot. Hopefully, the county that you're in, they're picking up cases. DVI was in San Joaquin County, and San Joaquin County was always picking up cases on gangsters. As long as we had good evidence, good documentation, good photograph, and everything was clean, they would pick up the case. As long as they knew, okay, who are the writing employees, who is the investigating officer, and who is the gang expert. And a lot of times, in the cases I did, I was the investigating officer and the gang expert in the same case. So I played both roles. I wore both hats. But then there were some cases I was just the gang expert, and the investigating officer he did the whole case, and my job was just to testify that the case was gang related, and that's not an easy task to do in court. So I want you to think most removals in prison are normally 3-on-1, 3-on-1 or 2-on-1. It's very rare it's going to be 1-on-1 unless it's inside of a cell because they're locked up and it's a 1-on-1. The gang wants this guy killed, so the cellie does it when he's sleeping and kills him. But in most cases, if it's on the day room or if it's on the yard, it's going to be 2 or 3 guys. And also it depends on how big the target is. If the target's a big dude, like 6'3", muscular, has good fighting skills, the gang is going to send maybe like 4 guys on him. The last thing the gang wants is the target to kick everybody's ass, and they look like a bunch of fools, which rarely doesn't happen. A lot of times the guy might survive, but anyways, when you're in court, if there's 3 suspects, you're going to be going against 3 defense attorneys, and that's not easy because you deal with one defense attorney, he's firing away on everything you did and everything you know about the gang, and then the other defense attorneys are piggybacking off of what they're saying and they're writing notes, and on top of that, the gangsters who are sitting next to the attorneys, they're telling the attorney, ask him this. They're writing on a little piece of paper with a pencil. Ask him this question. Ask him, why didn't he do this? Did he ever validate me? Did I ever self-admit? Because they want you to say on the stand. That's what they try to do because they want to ask you a question. Has my client ever self-admitted to you that he was a gang member? No. And then they move on to another question. Have you ever validated him? No. And then they leave it. But then that's when the prosecutor, a lot of times he'll come in and he'll say, Officer Ray, I know they asked you this and this and that, but can we clarify? Is it normal that the gang members, do they voluntarily self-admit all the time? Not all the time, they don't. And then that's when the prosecutor comes in and kind of cleans it up. But these are just some tactics that the defense, they try to ask you a lot of these nitpick questions and they try to twist you up. And so you're done with that second guy, defense. Now you got to deal with the third one. And then the third one's done. Then they go back to the first one, then second one. They go, it's like, you're like like a pinball. You're going back and forth, firing away until the judge says, enough is enough. You're already asking that question. So these are some of the things you go through in court when you're testifying as a gang expert or as an investigating officer.
Right. So take us through a little bit of what a validation looks like. And I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with the Q forms and things like that, and the evidence that we would use to try and validate guys.
So, opinion, I think CDCR has one of the best validation certifications, at least on the West Coast. I haven't seen any on the East Coast, but they are solid. When I was working still, we would have trainings on validating on key points. I mean, you would have some OG gang investigators teach. Hey, this is what you guys are doing wrong. This is how you do it. This is some tactics we used to use. So you got to learn these tricks when you're documenting. And the first thing, you got to be truthful. The last thing you want to do is start putting black and white and you're falsifying information. If you do not have enough information to validate a gang member, don't validate them. Just keep on. Just wait. Just wait until you have enough. Don't stretch your validation, because when you start stretching it, it becomes weak. And the last thing you want is a weak validation. Use quality documentation. What I mean by that, when you're interviewing somebody and he says, "Yeah, I am a Kumi member." Oh, so you're like, "Oh, cool. He just self-admitted." Okay, self-admission. No, don't stop right there. Ask him, how long have you been a Kumi member? When did you get put on? Who put you on? Were you on the streets? Did you get put on in jail? Did you get put on in prison? What did you have to do to become a member? Is there anything you have to memorize? Did you have to commit assault? Keep firing these questions away until the gangster says, "Whoa, time out. I'm not answering no more questions. You're asking me way too much." Then you can back off. So once those are the questions I used to ask them. And so once they told me, "Hey, hold on, you're getting too deep," I'm telling on myself. That's when I would tell them, "Okay, no problem. Hey, I need to check out your tattoos." And then that's when I would tell them, leaving your boxers on and your shoes and socks, I want you to pull your pants down to your ankles, leaving your boxers on, and then take off your t-shirt. And I'm going to look at your tattoos. And then, boom, there you see. There's this gang initiation tattoo, the gang name, his AKA, the symbols, and you have it all there. He gave you a self-admission. Hopefully, he told you when and where he became a member. And then now you have his tattoos to document. And from there, I would normally just say, "All right, man, go to yard or go kick it in the day room." And I say, "I'm going to go hit your cell. I'm not going to disrespect it. I'm just going to look for any gang indicia." And me and my partner will go up to the cell. One guy will post up at the door, and then I will search the cell looking for gang indicia. So if I found like photographs or graffiti or some type of symbols on the wall, now you have a third point. So now you have three sources. You have a self-admission, you got tattoos, and now you have something on the wall, some type of graffiti. So now you got three source documents. And at the time, I don't know if it changed with the CDC, but when I was still doing it, there was only three. You needed three source documents, and then you can do good quality work. Read your document over and over. Don't make no errors. And then once you document it, give the gang member a copy of the document. That's the last thing. The last thing you want to do is hold information from him. If you take photographs of him and you see he has gang related tattoos, tell him, "I'm going to give you a copy of this document. And when you get back to your office, once you have time, type it up, Once it's proofread and it's clean, make a copy, put it in a you save them, mail it off to him. So that's his receipt. So now he can show other gang members, when they ask him, "Hey, why were you talking to Ray?" "Oh man, he pulled me over. Man, he told me to take off my clothes, and he wanted to check out my tattoos." Now he can show them that document of proof that he's not in there telling, snitching, or giving up any type of information. Now this is his receipt saying that, yeah, Ray did take photographs of him. So that's like source documents. And then you got your Q forms where you take photographs of the guy. So here's something I learned and what I teach now. So if you're an IGI officer or a gang officer anywhere in the US, when you take photographs of a guy, like with the placard, I think we call them like 4x4s, the front, the side, the back, and then the other side. If he doesn't have a tattoo, a gang related tattoo on him, just take the photograph and put it in your document anyways. Like say he had a gang related one on his chest, his gang name, but on the back, on his back, he had nothing. On that same document where your document is tattoo on his chest, put a picture of his back that he has nothing. So later down the road, if he ever transfers or he paroles or he goes to the streets or another prison and he gets a tattoo and the officer pulls him over and checks him out and he goes, "Oh, Ray documented me." "Oh yeah, when did he document you?" "Oh, in 2017 when he was at DVI." "Okay." So he can go back and look at that document and he can see that I took a picture of his back with nothing on it. So now the officer who got his current photo, he sees a new tattoo on his back, says, "Hey, I noticed when Ray took a picture of you, you had nothing on your back, but now you do." So if I would only put that picture of his chest, he would have told that officer, "Oh, I've always had that." So I don't know if that makes sense. I know I'm talking in the gang world here.
Well, little things mean a lot, and
Yeah.
documenting what isn't there always gives people in the future a clue as to maybe when something happened. Maybe he got that tattoo because he put in some work. Maybe he,
Yep.
finally made it a little bit further up the chain where they said,
Yep.
"Hey, you're good to put that on your skin." All of these things are little tiny indicia of what this guy may really be about. And so, it's important to have that good documentation. And it's just, little tiny those little tiny clues. I don't know how many times, I ran around the yard trying to find, some guy named Viking or Owl or something like that. And, nobody was putting anything, in their files. There was no way to chase the guy down. So all of those little things matter, and that I think that that's a testament to why you got as far as you did.
Yeah.
So I think we're close to wrapping it up now, but I want you to talk a little bit about uh, the um, the conditions that you worked under, and the things that you think worked, and the things that maybe didn't work so well. And if you were put in charge, what you would do and what your system would look like.
Oh man, that's a lot to talk about. Okay, so the first question, the conditions I worked, obviously at DVI, it was all general population. So I was grateful to dealing with that on the main line and the reception center. So we've seen a lot of violence and a lot of activity, a lot of growth within the gangs, and we learned a lot in ISU. I had some great partners up there. We were all like sponges. We all wanted to learn. We had guys who specialized in phones, people in drugs, uh, people who had a lot of informants. And I remember I had a female partner. She had a bunch of informants, and I was kind of like jealous. I was like, man, I need to step up my game. I mean, she has all these, and here I only got maybe one or two. And but you got to have a group of people who are like sponges. And in that group that you work with, everybody's got to get along. Everybody's got to be go getters, because you can't have someone who doesn't want to be a go getter, because that kind of like messes things up. I mean, one of my partners, he used to always say, "All right, man, they don't want to pay us overtime. We're gonna go earn it." We used to get off at 4 o'clock, and he goes, "We're gonna go hit 5 houses at 3:30. So when we get a bust, we got a package, and they got to pay us because we got a bus." And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let me call home so I can let them know that I'm not coming home on time. But that was strategies that we would do, because if you don't get a bust, you don't get paid. And that's some things that we did. That wasn't my idea, but it was one of my good partners. He was like, "No, we're gonna go hit some houses right now." And I remember the supervisors on the line. They were like, "Whoa, this is your guys' package. You guys need to handle, because when you do a bust, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of paperwork involved for the supervisor. You know, you were a supervisor, Russ, and they're like, "You guys are doing it." Oh, we just found it. Our supervisors, they're at home already. They got off at 3 o'clock, and this is your show now. So you know how that would be, Russ. You're like, "Oh man, I got all these other things going on." So, but we had a good group, and we all learned together. And there was some ups and downs on the learning curve, but you know what? We had a great crew of people in our unit. What would I do different? Mm, I would say do more things out of the ordinary. I mean, try not to, and we did. We did this at Tracy as well. Don't come in at the same time all the time. These guys know what our hours are. They know what our days off are. Change it up, surprise them, and just do that as a unit. And we did do that. Let me think here. What would I do as a supervisor? I would try to make everybody an expert in the unit if possible. But if everybody could get that just that one time as an expert, whether if it's in narcotics or weapons or gangs, I think that would be super cool as a supervisor to say, I have a weapon expert on duty right now, or I got a drug guy here, I got a cell phone guy. And I think that goes a long way, and it speaks volumes for your unit. And we did have that.
Yeah, I think cross training is a beautiful thing. The way I would do it when I was a sergeant is I would try and play to my strengths, but I always wanted all those people that are strong to cross train those other people.
Mhm.
And so, and it was hard. Not everybody was, buying off into, what my philosophy about, running a ship was. But, not everybody wants to get involved. Some people are, just there filling a slot. But, I think it says a lot to where you're trying to give people the training they need, trying to give them the tools they need, and trying to, assert dominance over whatever unit you're placed over, because when you're able to assert that dominance, you can stop a lot of things. I was always a big believer in, being proactive and not just observe and respond, because by the time you're responding, you're already behind the curve.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap this up, Johnny, and I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
so,
for having me.
everyone, and give a plug to his book here, Yard Down, and I'm going to place a link to where you can buy that on Amazon, and that will be down in the show notes. So everyone, I highly recommend it. I bought this. I bought the electronic version. So Anyway, appreciate it, Johnny.
Yeah, no, thank you for having
Catch
me,
you.
man. The way I am, anything to help out a correction officer learn and get better. That is my ultimate goal.
That is what this show is for. All right, we're going to sign off, people.